All right, so an organic compound is a compound with a carbon and hydrogen backbone, and it may also contain oxygen, halogens, sulfur, or nitrogen. Okay? Then, what are your major classifications? We're going to talk about 4 fairly detailed, and then we'll talk about some others. Okay? So we're going to talk about alkanes. Alkenes. Alkynes. And alcohol. All right. You're going to notice that I underlined something. The endings. The endings are going to be important here in a bit. Okay? And we'll get to that. All right? So, an organic compound has a carbon and hydrogen backbone, and it also contains oxygen sometimes, halogen sometimes, sulfur and nitrogen. And we've got some major classifications: alkenes, alkynes, alkanes, alkenes, alkynes, and alcohols. We're going to talk about those first. All right? So we're going to start with alkanes. And again, I'm underlining that. I don't know, go ahead. All right, so alkanes, they are made up of carbons, single bonded together. Hydrogens fill in together hydrogens fill in the other spots. Okay?
Yeah.
The general formula is C to the N H to the 2N plus 2. All right? Yep. So, for example, hang on a second. All right. So, here's what that means. dumb piece of crap. Not y'all. It. What you got? General formula: C to the n, h to the 2n plus 2. All right. We're going to redo that. Ed and I are not liking each other today. So, for example,
Is that A or H?
for example, if n is 3, okay, that means I have C3, H is 2 times 3 plus 2, right? N is a variable. So it's C3, H, H. Okay? So, here's what I would do with it. Alright? We okay here?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
This is what's called a structural formula. So what we just did was a molecular formula, right? We just wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you just write the formula, that's a molecular formula. What you got?
What is that? I can't read that. Where it says general formula.
CN H 2N plus 2.
H?
She said that.
Wait, is that
There. All right. We okay here?
Yes.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
Can I go back to my clean screen? Yeah. All right. So, that's what an alkane is. All right? I'm going to go through what each one is, and then we'll talk about how to write them and name them. Okay? So, an alkene is carbons with one double bond. In the backbone. Uh-huh. And you represent a double bond like this, where it looks like you have an equal sign between them.
That's because they're sharing, right?
Because they're sharing electrons, exactly.
That means there's 2 electrons.
Right. All right?
Double. What?
With a double bond in the backbone.
Yeah, Miss Penny, what is a backbone? What do you mean by that?
Just a line of carbons put together.
Oh.
So like you'll hook all the carbons together and then you put hydrogens around it.
Alright, so that's what an alkane is.
Mm-hmm. All right? And then again, hydrogens fill the other spots. And the general formula is C to the N, H to the 2N. So, for example, if N is 6, it's C6, H how many? 12, because it's 2 times 6.
How do you know how many, like, of each of, how many, how do you know how many hydrogens?
Okay, we'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. Right now we're just doing real generic stuff, and then we'll get there. Okay? We're just going through generic, base level what they are. Then we're going to get to the naming and writing. All right?
Yeah.
We okay here?
No.
Then, generically, you have alkyne. ALKYNES. So they're a carbon chain with a triple bond. In the backbone. Which will look like this. I can't read. Hydrogens fill the other spot. And the general formula is C to the N, H to the 2N minus 2. Uh-huh. So, for an example, if N is 7, it'd be C7, H how many?
H12.
H12. Okay. Alcohol. They use the alkane, alkene, or alkyne. Remove one or more hydrogen and add an OH group.
You said OH3?
OH group. That OH group is your alcohol group.
Is that a negative sign?
Yeah, adapt. What you got?
What is the general formula for alcohol?
Alkene,
Yes.
C to the N, H to the 2N. All right. Nope. This definition.
Is there a general formula for alcohol?
Nope. Because it takes off an OH, it takes off a hydrogen and puts on an OH, so it just removes the piece. So, with organics, it's very important to draw structural formulas. A structural formula is a drawing of how the organic looks. It shows all the elements and the bonds, the connection. Because you can have what's called an isomer. An isomer is an organic with the same molecular formula but a different structural formula.
What? Yeah. Yeah.
What's so funny?
Here you go. Yeah. Okay. You're welcome. Okay.
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at hopefully the structural formula and count the carbons. And if there's carbons going all different directions, I want the longest carbon chain. And I'm going to use a prefix, just like I did in covalent.
Like a single bond?
No, like I'm going to count the number of carbons. So if I have 3 going down, but I have 5 going across, I'm going to use the 5. Okay? I'm going to look at the bond between the carbon. To get my suffix. And I give a double or triple bond. A numerical address. And the lowest number possible. We'll get to it. I'll show you. It'll make sense in a minute. 3. If an OH is present, representing an alcohol, give it the lowest number possible.
So is there only OH groups for alcohol?
Uh-huh. Okay. 4, if you see a closed shape. Okay. Use the prefix cyclo. Alright.
Okay, I'm saying
There will be another 5. Ugly 5. If a halogen is present, it removes a hydrogen and is given a numerical location. And is named by its root, meaning so like F is fluoro. Cl would be fluoro. BR, bromo, iodo, uh-huh. Side chain of carbon. Get counted. Yep.
F equals.
Yep. A numerical location. And a YL on the end their name. Yep, I will. Two carbons. Dash YL. Right here?
Yeah.
Yep. So, first thing we want to know before we can do these, though, are the prefixes. The prefixes are slightly different than covalent. And unlike organic, everything gets a prefix this time with a number of carbons, or unlike covalent. So if you see a carbon, it needs a prefix. You can write these on your periodic table or your equation sheet. So if it just has one carbon, it gets the prefix meth. 2 is F. 3 is prop. 4 is bute. Like you've heard of a butane lighter, right?
Yes, I have.
B-U-T-A-N-E.
Oh, that's where you get like ethane and methane.
Right. You've heard of propane for your grill.
What about methane?
Okay. You've heard of methane, a cow fart.
Yeah,
Right.
What?
5 starts looking like covalent. Is tent. 6 is hex.
So methane is
Methane is a cow fart. 8 is oct. You've heard of octane, right? When you go to the gas station and you pump gas, the different ratings are different levels of octane in gasoline. How much of it is there? 9 is still non, and 10 is still dead. All right? So we're going to use those prefixes. Now we'll get into, so it might look something like this. Typically, you can do it either from the structural formula or from the name. I'm going to start you from the name to know how to break it down. Huh? These are a bunch of examples. Okay. All right. These are just examples. All right. So for propane, the prefix is pro, right? It tells us the number of carbons. There are 3. So I'm going to write C, C, and C. The ane.
Wait, hold on, we gotta go back.
All right. The ane tells me the type of bond hooking the C's together. It's single bond, meaning I just draw a line between each one.
Oh, like that.
Since it doesn't tell me anything else, all I put, what did I tell you in the very generic alkane notes? Everything else is hydrogen. Now, carbon gets 4 bonds, right? Because we said it's plus or minus 4, right? So each carbon better have 4 lines. So I'm going to draw a line and put a hydrogen, draw a line, put a hydrogen, draw a line, put a hydrogen. That carbon now has 4 lines going to it, right?
Yes.
This carbon already has 2. So how many hydrogens do I put? 2.
Yeah, the one on the end is 3, right?
And the one on the end gets 3. Okay. Does that one make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. All right.
How would you like to come up with the formula?
So then the formula would be, you just count it.
So C3, H,
C3,
H, yeah, H.
H8. All right.
And that's propane.
And that's propane.
Wow.
All right. Are we okay here?
Yeah.
Yeah? So, again, as a quick recap, the pent tells you the number of carbons. The and tells you the type of bond, because it's the truncated form of alkane, A-N-E. The all tells you that there's an OH to make it an alcohol. The 1 tells you the location of the OH. The bromo tells you that you have a bromine. The 2 tells you the location or the address of the bromine. Are we okay here?
So for example, if we were to say,
if
if we were to say 3 bromo, would it be on the 3?
So it's like,
Huh?
I was
If we were to say 3 bromo, would it be on the 3rd?
So if it said 3 bromo, it would be on the 3rd carbon.
so it's like the C's are the numbers, like one,
The C's are the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Okay? All right. How can I help you, Jessica?
Can you go back to the? Well, you can just keep going. I'll ask you later.
Okay, what you got, Bill? Huh? Okay. So what an alcohol does is instead of having a hydrogen right here, it put on OH. So in the formula, if I were to write it, it would have an extra O and not just an H, right? So it took up an H, put on an OH. So this formula is C5, H, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. BR, OH.
Can you do it backwards?
Uh-huh. No. But I have to do it from the name. I can't do it from this.
You can't do a structural formula and then figure out what the name is?
I can? Yes, I can. And I'll show you how.
Like,
All right. So let's do a structural formula.
okay.
Let's do this one. All right. Really? They're supposed to be H's, they just look really bad. Alright. So, I've got this. I've got a double bond right there in the middle. So I have a double bond right here. How many carbons do I have? I have 7 carbons. Now my rules tell me that I have to, so I know the prefix is hep.
Are the two last right ones on top, are those H's?
Yep. Alright. I know my ending is E
Based on the double bond.
because it's a double bond.
So you name it based on the
You name it based off their bonds. But I have to give this double bond an address. I have to give it the lowest number possible. So, but I name it based on the location of the carbon. Because it's an alkene. Double bond is alkene. Remember, single bond is alkane, so it gets the ending of ane. Double bond is alkene. In the whole thing, it gets the ending of ene. Alright, so I want to give it the lowest number possible. So I need to know, am I going to count left to right or right to left? If I count from my left, I go 1, 2, 3. The double bond is at carbon 4. It's between 4 and 5. So I would give it number 4 if I counted from my left. If I count from my right, I go 1, 2, it's at carbon 3. Which is smaller, 3 or 4?
3.
3. So its name is 3-peptine. All right.
Yeah. So which way do we, so the way we count or the way that we, like, right from left to right depends on where the bond is?
Where the bond is. Where the double or triple bond is. What you got, Nisha?
Can we go back to go see the formula for that?
Yeah. See, yeah. And so,
Formula?
huh?
Molecular formula is
C7H14. But writing C7H14 doesn't help me because I could make C7H14 look like a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I could put this in a shape. I could,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know that I could put that double bond in a bunch of different places. Because I could put it here, 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 and have it look different, right?
Get different answers.
And get a different answer. Well, here, 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 or here. No. Here, 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 or here gives me different answers, right?
Yeah.
So once I go to here, I start getting the same answer again because then I'm just counting from the other side. So, alright. If I go back to here, the formula is C5H10BROH. If I wrote it big. But, alright.
Does it matter if it's OHCR or
No, doesn't matter.
I wanted to do that.
Typically, you put the alcohol at the end, but all right. Let's try another one. What? All right. Here's what I want to do. Actually,
give us our packet?
I'm going to give you your packet today. I'm going to let you read through it at this point. Your organic packet. We will do some more practice.